The time being 7 p.m., all members being present, I call this meeting to order. Before we get too far, we'll welcome our newest member, Ms. Diffusia, correct?
Diffusia, yes.
Diffusia. Welcome her to the board, and we will extend our thank you to our former member, Nick Lazzotti, for his time on the board and his service. And we'll get started, all right? All right. Starting with agenda item A, approval of minutes from March 10th, 2025.
Those were scheduled to be completed and were not, so we'll have to move them to the
All
next
right. I
meeting.
wasn't sure if maybe we had them floating around somewhere.
No, sir.
So we'll deal with those. All right, that brings us to agenda item B1, committee reports. Do any of the members have any committee reports they wish to make at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr.
Sorry?
Chairman, we had a CCP, what was it? CPC meeting that I'm on, and we discussed the meeting more often than we have been, so that we can float some ideas where we want to entertain use of the CPC money. So we're meeting again in June, and then again in September, June 5th, I think it is. And then we're meeting again in September, so we can coordinate any submissions before the town meeting. And then all members were in agreement that we should do that. So we did allocate some money for Alex's request. For what was it for again?
It was to fund some consultant work for the open space and recreation plan update.
Right, that's what it was. So we funded that, and then we have a new member, Nancy Reed, was welcome to the board as well. And again, we're meeting again in June, so that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? No?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so as far as committees go, we're going to deal with those at the next meeting. But those who serve on a committee, if you want to stay, obviously that's fine. If you don't, or if anybody wants to suggest they want to serve on one of the ones that's available, Ms. Slaughter, would you remind us what they are as well?
Sure, that is the Economic Development Committee, the representative for the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, and the Community Preservation Committee.
All right, okay. So we'll deal with those at the next meeting. That brings us to agenda item B2, which is the town planners report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the horizon, so for next meeting, April 28th, there are continued public hearings from this meeting and from prior, and there will be a new public hearing for a land disturbance permit at 283 Pleasant Street. Next item, the Greater Lowell Y is hosting a recreation camp for school vacation week, April 21st to the 25th, for children ages 7 to 13 out of the Tewksbury Recreation Center on Livingston Street. The Y will offer a variety of daily activities, including games, indoor sports, arts and crafts, and more for kids to enjoy over the break. There will be a limited number of outdoor activities, weather permitting. Hopefully we have a real spring and not whatever this is out here. The camp will run Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. daily, and folks can, they are required to have at least a 2-day minimum package, but they are able to do 2, 3, 4, and 5-day packages. And folks can visit tewksbury-ma.gov/TewksburyYMCA for more details about that. And it's also stickied on the homepage of the town website. Next item of note, the Wilmington Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce is hosting the Taste of the Town event tomorrow, Tuesday, April 8th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn up on Highwood Drive. Sample cuisine from area restaurants and vote for your favorite dishes. There'll be live auctions and raffles, and you can visit the Wilmington Tewksbury Chamber website for more details on that and for registration. The annual Town Cleanup Day is going to be hosted by the Beautification Committee on Saturday, April 26th from 9 to 2 p.m. Folks interested in participating can stop by the DPW at 999 Whipple Road to pick up cleanup bags and drop off what they have collected. Families, corporate teams, and those seeking community service hours, high school seniors, are encouraged to participate, and you can email clean.up.tewksbury@gmail.com for questions. Next item, the 250th anniversary of the American Revolutionary War reenactment is going to be celebrated in Tewksbury. The Historic Society is inviting people to join them to commemorate the 250th anniversary on Sunday, May 4th at 1:30 p.m. on the Town Common. And the plan is to walk the line of march route taken to the library, and light refreshments will be available at the library following the march. Next up, the annual town meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 5th at 7:30 PM, and then continued to May 7th at 7:30 PM as well for special town meeting starting at 7, all taking place at Tewksbury Memorial High School at 320 Pleasant Street. The Finance Committee is holding its own public hearing on Monday, April 28th to hear all the warrant articles. And last but not least, I just wanted to make a note here that the Boston Globe featured a Tewksbury company in its New England 50 fastest growing companies. On March 20th, 2025, the Boston Globe published a column highlighting New England's 50 fastest growing companies, which aims to rank the region's revenue growth champions. Among the list ranked at number 24 was Advisors Living Real Estate. With over 221 employees across the region and locally, Advisors calls 725 Main Street their home here in Tewksbury. Senior Vice President Michelle Oates and her team here have been involved in some educational events the town has hosted for area real estate agents on timely topics such as wetland protection bylaw updates and ADU regulations, including partnering with the town to host one of those events at their offices. So I wanted to lend a congratulations to Advisors Living on their continued success, and I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That brings us, any questions?
All set.
Okay. That brings us to agenda item B3, which is board reorganization. So I guess we'll start with nominations for the chair. Ms. Lauder will take those.
I would nominate Steve Johnson for chair.
Okay, so we're going to hold,
Hold off on that.
well, no, I was going to hold that. Are there any other nominations before I accept Mr. Champa's second? Going once? Okay, so we have Mr. Duffy nominating Mr. Johnson with a second from Mr. Champa. And Mr. Johnson, do you accept that motion to
Yes.
be nominated?
Thank you.
Okay, and all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All those not? Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. I will now take nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Mr. Fatilia for vice chair if he's interested in staying on board there.
All right, any other nominations?
Second it.
All right. I'll take a second, and then we got that now. So now we have motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. And then nominations for clerk.
I'd like to nominate our newest member, Karen DeFruscia, for our clerk.
I'll second that.
All right, no other nominations, I presume. All right, so we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous, and we are reorganized. All right. Off to business. Brings us to agenda item C, 100 Florida Road, Thomas Craig Family Suite Special Permit. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, we have anyone here for this hearing? Gentlemen, if you give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
My name is John Hunt.
My name is Tom Craig.
The floor is yours, gentlemen.
I'm Craig. We're just, Tom is a longtime owner of this house, interested in putting on this family suite. We got Board of Appeal approval last week. We're in the appeal period for that. The square footage is on here. The new addition is 656 square feet. We're going to take 175 from the existing house to make it a total of 831 square feet.
All right, anything else? Nope. All right, Mr. Fuchsia, we'll start with you.
I have absolutely no problem with it. I think bringing more family and keeping our families in Tewksbury is a great idea.
All right, Mr. Champa,
Nothing here, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duffy.
I don't have a problem with it either, Mr. Chairman, and I think it's a great set of plans, and I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad you were able to get your variance and keep moving on, and I'm 100% in favor.
Mr. Patalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have sewer at the house?
There is.
There is? Okay. One of the requirements is that you tie into sewer if you didn't have sewer, but you do, so that's great.
We're good.
So I've been by the house. Is the pool staying where it is? No? Okay. Figured it was pretty close to the addition. I'm like, probably can't keep that, so, but how about the hot tub?
The pool, the hot tub, the decks, they are going to be moved.
Okay, all right, that's too bad. So, I'm all in favor of family suites whenever they come in front of us. It's great to see families helping families. like you're doing, so that's great. And then, so how many square feet is it again, just for the record?
It's gonna be 831 square feet when completed.
Total?
We're
Okay.
taking 175 from the existing house to
Okay.
get to that total.
Yeah, so once you leave here, as far as getting approval, the building inspector will be the one who's gonna be our hands and eyes at the site. So everything will go through him as far as if you have any
Yeah,
problems or any issues.
We already went through them a little.
Yeah, good, yeah, so he's a great guy, so, but with that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the chair is all set as well. Open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing.
A motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Want to grant the special permit, you just close the hearing.
We didn't do that, Steve.
That was closing
Yeah,
the
hold
hearing.
on.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Jeez. So for the family suite special permit itself, I apologize.
I'll make a
Jumped the gun.
motion to approve the family suite at 100 Florida Road as presented tonight.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
All set.
Okay,
Good luck.
set.
Moving on to agenda item D, that's 485 Main Street. The petitioner is requested to be continued to our 428 meeting at 7:05. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. That moves us to agenda item E, 611 Main Street, Econo Auto, modification to site plan approval. A motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
A motion
Second.
made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
You're gonna have to get you a punch card for every time you come back.
As long as
Guys are
that,
settled. If you give your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Yep, so for the record, Justin Leclerc, McCarty Engineering.
and Al Salas Eco Auto.
Floor is yours, gentlemen.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so last time we were in front of you for the proposed 4,000 square foot building with the associated parking located at 611 Main Street. I know you have a new member here, so I'll give just a quick rundown. It was a new building to be used in association with the Eco Auto dealership and parking. Planning board approved it. Since then, we've gone through the construction budget. We've talked to Mrs. Salas and Mrs. Salas regarding what they wanted to do, and they asked that we modify the building, shrink it down to approximately 1,400 square feet, and add a couple parking spaces. So I'm just gonna put up the. So,
And I can take it from there. So basically, what we're looking to do here, just to keep it really, really simple, is we're trying to minimize the impact that we have on the site. There was some issues with Roger Street in the past where we needed to make sure that there was no traffic onto Roger Street. When we modified that, we blocked that off. We're bringing in more green space around that. The footprint of the building, based on some of the original research that we did, we decided to go a little bit smaller on the footprint. And then on the charging stations, we are going to keep those over on this side, away from away from the houses, basically. They'll be more towards our building over here. And then on the left-hand side, we're proposing a few little modifications to maximize the space, and we're taking away some spaces that we had, but we're bringing back some green spaces as well. So for an overall net zero, or I would say very minimal green space disturbance in that sense. So the goal here is to minimize the impact, but also be able to create a more desirable site as we drive by, we look at it, and makes it pop as you're driving by Main Street from now two abandoned places to what's going to be the future.
So just to add that on the left-hand side of 623 Main Street, we are working within buffer zone, so it has been filed with the Conservation Commission. I did have a site walk with the conservation agent. She had no issues while we were on site. We are scheduled to be in front of the commission next week. This has also been received and reviewed by TEC, the review engineer. They did come back with a first round of comments that we did respond to and submit back to them. If the board wants, I do have the letter with me tonight. I can go through it, just talking points, or if the board wants to wait until we get the second letter back from TEC, we can do that as well.
Yeah, probably make more sense, because I mean, if they have no problem with it, there's no real reason to run through it, and if they do, we're gonna have to deal with whatever that is anyways, so.
Yeah, and there was no, from TEC, there was no major issues, a couple minor things that we'll have to discuss, I would expect by the next meeting. They would be satisfied with everything.
And you have Ms. Lauder's letter?
Yes, that was incorporated into our response letter.
Okay. All right. All right, anything else?
Nope.
We'll start with Mr. Champa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just making sure I understand what we're doing here. We're going to be reconfiguring the parking lot of the existing parcel on the left side, which is the south side, and we've done some design changes to the new parcel where there is existing house right now, but we already had all, it was already understood that that was coming out in favor of new configuration. You had a sizable maintenance building that was going to be going in. It looks like you have something a lot smaller now. I didn't see any elevations of that. What's the height of the proposed building in that orange corner there?
So that thing that we mentioned of is between what was approved by this board and the revised plan, grading didn't drastically change. Obviously, it tweaked a little bit with the building being smaller, things of that nature. But we're still maintaining a 122.15 finished floor elevation, which is similar to what was already there.
Okay, and the height of the building itself?
I believe that we maintain the same height as the original one.
So it's still tall enough to maintain like work trucks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And just for the board's knowledge, building-wise, though it is smaller, it's still going to look similar to what you had already seen as part of the previous submission.
Okay, and that allowed for some reconfiguration of where the handicap spaces go?
Yes, so we were able to reconfigure where the handicap spaces were going. We did increase the parking. Originally, there was 46 on this site. We're now up to 53. So we were able to get a couple more out of it by reducing the size of the building.
Okay, and the only other thing I noticed was a note about parking encroaching on the 20-foot setback. You're asking for a waiver for that?
So the encroachment of the parking is located on the 623 parcel. So the proposed development meets the required setback. The 623 parcel is existing, which encroaches already. We're not further increasing that non-conformance, I would say. We're maintaining the existing edge of pavement, the existing parking.
So it's not conforming now, and you're just asking to leave it?
Just leave it, we're not making it worse.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Fuchsia?
I don't have anything, like questions at this time.
All right, Mr. Fratelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the plans that you just showed, we have those here because you have some highlighted buildings there. That's
Yeah,
different?
so I just colored the plan just for tonight, make it easier for you to see.
Just to make sure I didn't have the wrong plans that you
Nope.
have. So it's that little box there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, Just want to clarify that. So, so how many outstanding issues do you have with TEC? I know there was a bunch there. I didn't really want to view. I figured I'd let you review them and comment on it.
So,
You made the comments and
yes, so.
we just need something from them saying, yeah, they're in agreement.
Yeah, so a majority of them have been addressed. The One that we're waiting to hear back from them is regarding the 623 parcel. Based on the reconfiguration, moving the curbs, things like that, taking out some of the landscape islands, there's a net increase of 700 square feet of pavement. They were asking where it's going, how do you mitigate it? That existing increase goes to the existing infiltration system that is located pretty much in the middle of the parking lot on the 623 side.
623, yeah.
Yep. And similar to what we had done and they signed off on the right-hand side is, it's a very minimal flow. It's 0.1 CFS. It equates to 60 cubic feet of volume that we'd have to treat. Where it's already going to an existing system that would handle it, treat it, infiltrate it prior to potentially discharging. Our response was that the existing system will handle that additional runoff.
Okay. All right, that's fine. What else do we have here? Hold on a second. So when is the demolition of the house going to start?
As soon as possible.
It's a great question. Yes, as soon as possible.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we are fully cleared so that we're not just making a hole in the town, right? We want to be able to get moving.
Yeah, okay. I see a couple of residents in the house here, so I want to, if you had a date for them, I'm sure they're interested because they see it every day.
Yes.
I drive by the site every day. I live near there.
Yes.
So one issue I have, and this was, I know you're going to put cars and you're going to put a fence up there eventually on Rogers Street so you don't see it. But driving by one day, you had all types of cars on the grass and all around the whole building. So I know you want to make a parking lot out of it, but it's not a parking lot yet. We haven't finalized the plans really. So I would hope that maybe you wouldn't park too many cars there so that it doesn't take away from the neighbors having to see it all the time, and for the residents having to drive by and say, what are all those cars doing at that house?
Yeah.
They may not be familiar with the fact that you're tearing it down, but if you could be so kind as to be, aware of what's going on besides your business with the neighbors and
Yeah,
people
and we-
driving by.
We
So-
care a lot about our town relationships. That was brought up to our attention. We addressed it immediately, and.
Oh, someone else brought it up.
Yep, and we addressed it immediately. We removed all the vehicles from there.
Good.
The only vehicles that are being parked there are plated vehicles that are registered, and that's what we're utilizing the site for. The other thing is the house is 100 years old, actually about 120 years old. We have encountered some challenges. One of them is we had to do an asbestos mitigation on the house before even thinking of tearing it down. So that was a 3-week study with a 2-week mitigation process
Yes.
that we had to remove. Insulation, windows, piping, then there's a whole utility process. So I thought it was approved, done, but it's a little bit more involved than that.
I'm sure it set you back some money-wise too. Asbestos is not a good thing to have to deal with. I know that personally, so. but-
Yes, that too.
So I'm glad it wasn't just me noticing the cars all around the property, and I'm sure the neighbors as well that are here have probably seen that as well, so. But, so if you're going to stop that, that's great, and with that, I don't have any other questions, so.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was just kind of looking for, do you have an elevation of the solar canopy? Is there any changes in that, or is that?
No changes.
That's the same, okay.
Yep.
So it's basically going to cover that center parking island there?
Yes.
Yep.
The whole thing from end to end?
Yeah, you see, there's a square there's a square outlay there of what the plan is for the solar canopy.
We'll make it easy to see here, so
Yeah,
here's your 2 islands here.
right,
The dash line that comes around it
yeah,
is the solar canopy.
okay. And that's good, that's good, because, and I think closing off that secondary entrance there is, because Mr. Fattalia at the last meeting, I think, mentioned that, getting vehicles in and out of there was going to be problematic with the canopy, if I'm not mistaken,
And the neighbors, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean, in addition to other problems there. And I realize that that the hazardous materials abatement process can be a little bit cumbersome there. So I'm glad to see you got that underway, because, you know, it's better to deal with it now than to have the stuff floating around the neighborhood, for sure.
Yes.
So I appreciate you guys taking care of that in the right way. A lot of people don't, you know, a lot of people just rip it down and put it in the dumpster, and that's not the right way to do it. So I appreciate you going about that the right way. And that's all I really have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. I mean, obviously, we already talked about, you know, you got a few things, you know, color Ts to cross and Is to dot with TEC, so, you know, you'll have to deal with that before you come back to the next meeting.
Yep.
The only other one, just as a clarification, I mean, I know the building's shrinking, but we did do a lot of discussion about the way it looked, the aesthetics, and, you know, the importance of it staying, you know, well taken care of on all sides, because what's your back is somebody else's, you know, yard view of the building. So nothing's changing as far as that's going. I'm watching you nod, but I'm also saying that what we said before still stands. So that is not changing. You know, that expectation is still part of this permit, and you'll be held to that, you know, to make sure that that happens, okay?
Understood.
All right. So with that, I'll open up to the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns. You just gave your name and your address. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Name is Andrea Chadis, and address is 7 Rogers Street. My question is about the delivery trucks. Is there a plan for like a pull-off or something on 38? Because right now, they're coming down Rogers Street and stopping directly in front of our house. And I didn't know if with the modification, if there was anything to help with that.
So we are widening in the entrances of the building in order to facilitate for trucks to come in and do the vehicle deliveries. We can't do them on 38. And it is I understand that from the perspective of the neighborhood, it is a concern, but I'm more concerned from the safety of drivers on 38. It causes a lot of traffic issues. We've talked to our delivery drivers because they come from all over the place. We don't always have control over that. And the plan will facilitate to have trucks come in, but we can't always control where a truck driver pulls in. It's not always the same transporting company. Our operations it's growing, and it's moving at a pace that a car that's there today might be being replaced 1 or 2 times during the month. So we don't have a lot of line of sight to that. So I can't promise you that it's going to stop completely, but I do know that our plan is going to mitigate for having the facility be able to receive those vehicles inside the facility. In fact, the entrance over here, one of the proposed pieces of the plan is that there's a big piece of the curb where the flag is. We have a big flagpole. That piece of the curb is getting increased to widen that and be able to let a truck to drive in there. That from there, them to actually doing it, that's the part that
Sure.
I can't control.
Is there going to be signage directing them there?
We can put signage, but again, I can
Sure.
only control what we can control.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you before you leave.
Sure.
How often are the trucks coming?
Probably at least once a week.
Yeah, Marty's probably a couple times a month, I would say.
Yeah.
So let me understand correctly. The big trucks that are unloading your cars are parked on Rogers Street till they unload?
Directly in front of our house.
I know Rogers Street like the back of my hand. It doesn't seem like it's a safe for anybody traveling Rogers Street having that truck unloading cars there. It's
I
just,
think you're assuming that it's the big trucks. There's all kinds of trucks. There's tractor trailers, but really most of the vehicles come in a truck with a trailer behind it.
Joe, you're talking one car, maybe 2 cars?
1 or 2 cars, most of the vehicles.
So they're not there for a long time? Okay.
So let's do this a little bit faster. I don't understand. That you control the delivery in that even if they get there, that you're allowing them to unload those vehicles on that street, rather than going and telling them to bring the vehicle. I mean, if it's a two-car trailer, then there's absolutely no reason why it's not being brought into your site right now. I thought we were talking about the huge trailers of multiple cars, and that when you were done with this, I was going to say, when this is done, they shouldn't be out there anymore. You may not be able to call them ahead, and I'm not sure I believe that, because you set up your deliveries. So if you're telling them to not pull on the side street, then they shouldn't be pulling on the side street, or you should be talking to whoever's delivering your cars. Okay?
Could you-
I don't want an explanation. I'm just going to say, the cars should not be out on that road, and if they're a two-car drop-off, before they start unloading that car, somebody from your place better go out there and start telling them to bring them into your site before they start unloading those cars, because they should not be out on Roger Street. Because my other concern is, that means they're probably on the opposite side, or they're parked on the wrong side of the street. So they should be on the right side. I bet you they're not. They're parking on the left side, which is the side cars should be coming up. That means that vehicle's facing the wrong direction and unloading vehicles. So I don't know, I don't want any explanation. I really don't, because there's absolutely no excuse for them unloading the cars. The fact that they may pull over because they're not sure where they belong or whatever, fine, you can't control that, maybe. But before someone gets out of that truck and starts unloading a car, a brand-new car that you're going to put on your lot, I'm guessing they don't just roll it off the back. They take a minute. Before that happens, somebody should be out there telling them not to do that. Those cars should not be getting unloaded out on the
I'm
street.
not offering an excuse, but I want to ask a question. Could I?
You can ask, sure.
That's all. I just want to help, I want a little help understanding what the understanding of the board is of the delivery process of a vehicle when it's purchased at the auction or wholesale.
You're asking me to explain to you the process?
I'm hoping to understand the understanding of the board.
Okay, maybe we'll do it the other way around then. Can you explain to me why I should be okay with you having the vehicles dropped off on the wrong side of the street, on the side street, and why they cannot come into your facility? Because now I'm starting to get concerned about the fact that if your facility is not designed to have cars dropped off to a car dealership, we may have a problem here that we're going to have to start discussing.
I agree, we would have a problem. I just want to understand what I could do, because I want to make sure that.
I may be wrong, but I thought I said it at the beginning. If you've got a couple of cars being dropped off on a trailer, somebody better get out there and tell them not to stay there, to bring that trailer onto your site and drop those cars off. Because if they can drop them off out there and you can drive them into your site or whatever it is you're doing, there's no reason why they can't come into the site and do the same thing. If you have some sort of space issue with a giant trailer, all right, maybe there's some other discussion that has to be had, and I'm concerned about that beside the point, but I can't understand an explanation for a 2 or 3 car drop-off, whatever vehicle they're driving. If they cannot maneuver on your site, and yet we have turn radiuses that tell us that fire engines can come into your site, then I'm confused about who's driving the vehicle that's dropping these cars off that can't do this.
Mr. Chairman, so completely understand the board's and the abutters' concern. That can be addressed. I would say that this site was previously a Nissan dealership for 16 years, and those curb cuts have been there for 16 years, and it was a fully operational Nissan dealership. I would expect that trucks through that time entered and exited the site. So I believe.
I see one person in this audience who may or may not have been here whenever that Nissan dealership may have been approved, but it wasn't me, and I'm the longest serving person on here. All I can deal with was what's in front of me, and I have a car dealership that's giving me the impression that they can't have cars dropped off, and that's concerning to me.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure that, for the record, I state that that's not what I'm saying. What you have is a car dealer that's come into town, and worked with the town throughout the entire process to beautify a site that was not operational. In that, we have found some challenges as well, operating the site,
Which I appreciate, but if you can tell me why my suggestion of why you can't go out and tell the delivery truck that has a couple of cars on it to pull into your site, and you can convince me that I'm wrong, then fine. But I have a feeling you're going to have a hard time convincing me of that right now.
I'm not looking
Okay,
against you.
so that's all it is. Just tell me that you're going to stop this and do everything you can possibly do to make sure this doesn't happen, and not just simply say, well, I don't know where they're going to pull over or what they're going to do when they show up. When they pull over on Rogers Street, and on top of which 99.999%, I am sure, they are on the wrong side of Rogers Street. They are going the wrong direction. I don't know why they're doing this. I'm guessing they're doing it because they're used to doing it.
Well,
I want them to stop getting used to doing it.
I don't want us to get hung up on something that, we get multiple deliveries a day, and we're talking about an issue that happens twice a month. So I do see the concern, and we will address it.
Honestly, you just made my point, though. You just said that it's only a once or twice problem a month. That shouldn't be an onerous problem to deal with then for me, correct?
We will, and we will address it, is what I'm saying.
Okay. What I'm saying is, we're going to finish this up, but this is going to be something that's going to be part of this permit, that this is not going to be something that's going to keep happening, or we're going to have a problem with what's going on there. So that we're clear, that's all. Because their complaint, or their question, or their issue is 1,000% makes sense to me. I do not understand it, and I've yet to hear an explanation that tells me that this should be okay and is absolutely something that needs to be okayed, or we're going to, ruin the business. That's not what I'm hearing here. This is something that should be able to be taken care of. It may take a little effort, and it may be one of those things where it takes a little effort up front, and then once these delivery folks are starting to get trained, they'll understand that it's just simply not allowed when they drop off to you. What they may do in other places, that's other places' problem. But for here and for you, I'm asking that this be something that is actively dealt with. Okay? All right.
So my concern is safety. Safety for the residents, and Rogers Street's not a wide street. To get two cars back and forth is one thing, but with a trailer parked on the side of the road, it's not easy. I know. I have not seen that trailer. I would have brought it up myself, but this resident has brought it up to our attention, which is why we're dealing with it. So my issue more is safety. With cars having to pass that car on Rogers Street and somebody coming off of Main, just not a good situation. So I'm sure you guys will deal with it, but, thank you for bringing it to our attention. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, I won't.
How you doing? Excuse me. Mike Ackerley, 22 Rogers Street. It's a property right behind the proposed site. I actually have pictures of the trucks, if anyone's interested, on Rogers Street during a snowstorm, unloading vehicles, almost causing several accidents in front of my house, which my concern, I have four small children. He's concerned about Main Street. I'm concerned about my children and my property. They almost caused several accidents that day during a snowstorm, and the tractor unloaded, tried turning around in my driveway, drove over my lawn, and then proceeded to back out onto Main Street during a snowstorm, almost causing more accidents. So that whole situation needs to be addressed. Like you said, it was a dealership for 16 years. I don't think they've ever unloaded on Rogers Street before. Nissan probably had big semi-trucks. Here only, like you said, a couple cars on a truck. So I don't see why at all they're on Rogers Street. That's one concern. Another concern is privacy. I know I brought it up last time we were here, privacy from my backyard. Like I said, I have four small children. We have a pool, a trampoline in the yard. Right now, we have a house that blocks us from Main Street. There's apple trees, all kinds of trees in the yard that will be gone soon, which will completely expose us to Main Street with the noise from the traffic and all the lighting, I'm assuming you'll be putting in for the parking spaces.
Can I just ask one question? Were you in when we did the permit the first time?
I was here at the first
Okay,
meeting,
just for
yes.
clarification,
Yep,
this is a
yep.
modification of that
Yeah, I
permit, so
brought
all
this
the
up at
things
the-
we did stay.
So what they did was put in 4-foot shrubs along the property line, which I believe was only 4-foot shrubs, and now they added parking spaces facing my property. So I just am asking to maybe if we could up the size of the greenery.
I mean, I don't have the landscape plan in front of me, but again, the landscape plan would be finished. They haven't done this yet. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So it's part of the full build-out. So if what's supposed to be there isn't there when it's all done, then yes, we have I mean, those things are not necessarily going to be in place yet because they're
No, no,
going to build a bigger
right,
building, now they're going to smaller.
I'm not too familiar with the plan. I haven't seen the new plan if anything changed. I just know before they were small, the building was more towards Roger Street before. Now it's shifted over, so now it's going to be completely open.
Well,
My yard to,
I'm not sure, maybe it should, but it's much smaller.
but I
That's
think
why.
it's more towards the corner, towards the existing Nissan building, I believe. I believe it shifted.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Not 100% certain.
so the building was larger, it's still approximately, this corner is still approximately in the same spot as approved. We're still proposing the privacy fence on the back, we're still proposing the landscape along the back. In addition, with the back of the building, all the lighting is proposed in front. So everything's, and it's still 0-foot candles at the property lines, even where the lighting is coming out this way. So it's still being screened on the back side, right, because you're talking here?
Yeah,
I can barely see.
yeah, you're talking that side, that's where the building, his building is.
Yes, so we're still showing the, I believe is a vinyl privacy fence,
6 feet?
6 foot in height, landscaping, no lighting on the back, so we're still screening as what was approved.
And to the previous comment, I have 3 kids of my own, 3 little kids of my own, and we already addressed it at length. We are gonna do everything in our power to make sure that
Okay.
we don't offload on Roger Street. And thank you
That's
for
what you
bringing
said
that
at the last meeting also.
And we have, I mean, to the point that we've gone down to only a couple times. a month.
It's been more, but I won't beat a dead horse over it. It's fine.
All right. Did you have anything else?
That's it.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any other questions, comments, or concerns? Only once? Twice? All right, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we continue this hearing,
All right, 7:15.
28th?
7:15.
7:15.
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. All right, we'll see you on the 28th.
28th.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Okay. That brings us to agenda item F. Now, I mentioned our former illustrious member who happens to be sitting in the audience, so it reminded me of something before we get started on this. Mr. Fowler, who served on this board for quite some time, had a line that I like and that I've always tried to repeat and certainly tried to remember whenever I can. And that is that, you know, we can disagree without being disagreeable on things. So I'm hoping that, you know, that's something that, you know, as we go forward, we'll keep in mind tonight and all nights. But Mr. Fowler was here and it made me think of it, so. All right. So with that, we'll open up the zoning bylaw amendments, agenda item F. And we are these? We don't have numbers for these, right? They're not numbered, right? Okay. All right, so we're going to start with so we'll just call it Article 1, or how do you want me to refer to these?
Well, would you like to take a motion to waive?
Yeah, I'm sorry, do we have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
A motion made? Do we have a
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Why don't we just do this, why don't you, if you want to just introduce the warrant article, and then we'll do it that way? I don't know what to call them if we don't have numbers, so.
Right, so I mean, we can just call them by their topics. So we have one
Okay.
related to the floodplain overlay district, I could start with.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
So the first item we'll take up is to see if the town will vote to amend the Section 2, 4.2, and 5.5 of the zoning bylaw related to the compliance with FEMA requirements related to the National Flood Insurance Program and taking any actions certain actions, to strike out and insert new language as indicated in the warrant article. So basically, FEMA had started its flood map study. again back in 2021, and we've finally received the preliminary maps in 2023, and they are going to make those preliminary maps final in June of this year. And that action requires at the local level for us to take those preliminary maps, incorporate them into our zoning overlay district layers, and to take the actions to strike out the different changes in the language. And a lot of it is, not all of it, most of it is all clerical in nature. So calling it the floodplain district instead of the floodplain overlay district, adding in the latest flood insurance rate map with the newest date of efficacy. It's a lot of it's updating the dates from 2016, which was the last time that changes were incorporated. And, before there were certain addresses and names of certain officials at the state level and the FEMA level that were named in the bylaw that, oddly enough, when they change frequently, you don't want to have them in a bylaw that can only be changed once a year. So FEMA made those changes to delete certain sections that are also not applicable to us. We only have, I believe, 3 types of districts in our floodplain map, which is the A, the AE, and the AO. And we're removing extraneous districts that don't apply to us. I've included the floodplain map in your packets as it appears in the warrant article up for discussion. And there really isn't any major, no one's suddenly in the floodplain, we'll put it that way. There's some encroachments, some expansions of areas that already were in the floodplain. But I think as climate events get more intense, that's not super surprising. Really isn't any more simple than that, and I'm happy to take questions. And the state has also indicated that we have to adopt these maps by June of this year, or the town jeopardizes its participation in the flood insurance program, which we don't want to do.
Okay.
Or I guess I would suppose we don't want to do.
So, I mean, so just for clarification, it's somewhat cleanup in terms of being consistent with the new rules and less, I mean, while we could not do it, it's mandatory in that a failure to deal with this causes problems.
Correct. The language itself is definitely a cleanup. It's really getting rid of old citations, changing old addresses and old officials at the state and national level to make sure that everything is set forth. And floodplain is really dealt with in other areas of regulation. It is a part of the Wetland Protection Act. As far as a regulatory body is concerned, if people want to propose construction in the floodplain, that goes to conservation for permitting. It's also considered in, the building commissioners consider the floodplain officer or what have you, but it's also a part of his review. So in effect, putting it in the zoning bylaw is a bit of belt and suspenders because it is dealt with at other areas, but it is in fact a requirement for us to maintain it on our zoning map to ensure that we maintain our participation in the flood insurance program.
But just for what I was kind of getting at was, it's one of those things, it's either do it or don't do it. It's not something that we are discretionarily messing with,
Correct,
is what I
yes.
mean. It's either up or down. It's not
Correct.
let's make it smaller, and then we
No,
would not
all
be
of-
compliant.
All of these changes were directed by FEMA, and they gave us a preliminary review and approval of them.
That's what I was getting at. All right. So we'll start with Mr. Duffy.
I don't have anything on this. I'm fine with the corrections.
All right. Mr. Fratelli.
Yeah, I have no problems. I just don't want to see us hurting any residents by not doing this, so I'd be willing to adopt this floodplain so that people that live near Shawshene and have floodplain issues aren't affected by us doing no action at all.
All right. Mr. Fuchsia.
I don't have anything at this moment.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman. Does this revised floodplain, does this cause a material detriment to any current residents, their properties or anything, where it's going to make them ineligible for any kind of insurance, or so does it affect them in a material way as far as their day-to-day living, what they're able to do at their property, things like that?
Not to my knowledge, and I haven't looked at every single parcel that's affected, but anybody who's already in the floodplain probably knows they're already in the floodplain.
Okay.
And it may be that there's a nominal increase in the buffer surrounding the area that was subject to regulation on their property. But again, I don't think that there's anybody whose property is suddenly going to be subject to regulation based on these changes to the map, because it's largely if anything, expansions to areas that are already subject to that review.
Okay. I would hate to think someone got a flood in their basement or something and then were denied an insurance claim by their own insurance company because they're now in a floodplain and didn't have flood insurance.
Generally speaking, people who work at I feel like the zoning bylaw is kind of the last change that catches up with all of this, because this is already being incorporated into building code, into the Wetland Protection Act. So
Okay.
I don't think there's any brand-new properties who are suddenly going to be subject to floodplain regulations where they weren't before.
We've certainly seen residents that come in wild with surprise over things that have been happening that were pretty well known, so.
Yeah, and
But I take your point and
Yeah.
believe it in earnest that this is just the last of it, so.
Yeah,
I'm
and-
all set, Mr. Chairman.
And just as a final point of clarification, when we're talking about flood zones, we're not talking about sudden intense weather events like we had in August and September of 2023, where everywhere suddenly looked like a flood zone because it was simply raining too hard for too long for the ground to be able to absorb in a reasonable amount of time. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the 100-year floodplain with historical data being incorporated. Just wanted to make sure, because I know that certainly have had a lot more rain and flooding in recent memory, but that's not what this is talking about.
Okay. All set?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
The chair is all set as well. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this one? Seeing none, does the board have a recommendation for this article?
I'd like to recommend that we endorse this article.
All right, so we're going to recommend adoption of this article. I have a second.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous.
So are there two we have to adopt?
Yes, please. So for the language, that can be for the language, if you could get one for the map as well.
For the map, okay, so we'll do it separate though, right? Okay, so we're going to do a motion on adoption of the map to go along with the motion for the one we just had.
I would like to move to adopt the floodplain map to go along with the article that we just approved at town meeting.
All right, I have a motion made. and
Second.
All right, motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. All right, Ms. Lauder?
Okay, and the second set of articles is another one where we have proposed language change and a proposed map change. And that is the article that this board voted to advance to town meeting related to the MBTA Communities Overlay District. As a manner of housekeeping here, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5 states that no proposed zoning ordinance or bylaw which has been unfavorably acted upon by a city council or town meeting shall be considered by the city council or town meeting within 2 years after the date of such unfavorable action, unless the adoption of such proposed ordinance or bylaw is recommended in the final report of the planning board. So where the board did make a recommendation for the floodplain districts, that was not required. That was just something that you were doing in the manner of your business of making recommendations on zoning articles. For this one, in order for the articles to advance to the town meeting warrant, it does have to receive a positive endorsement to advance to the warrant. And with that, I'll leave it to the chairman.
All right. We'll start with Mr. Fuchsia.
I'm going to pass on this one right now. I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said before at previous meetings, I am not in favor of this MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District entity that was voted on unanimously at town meeting to not adopt it as well. And as a planning board, I think we have the opportunity here tonight to not send it to town meeting. And then for that reason, I would recommend to my colleagues to not adopt this as well. So there's been a lot of discussion to the town, through social media and so forth about this issue. I think it's very well addressed by the residents prior to this. And I think we should follow what the residents say and not adopt this as well. So All set.
Mr. Champa?
Since we last considered the MBTA Communities Act, I think there's 5 towns now that are suing the state I don't know if all 5 of them are doing it because it is now considered an unfunded mandate, and the towns have the ability to seek to be reimbursed for the impact of any state legislation that impacts a community. So what I would say is, to me, it seems like, this would be, the right thing to do would be to be going on the offensive for this and get the state to be accountable for what it is they're trying to do to us in terms of implementing this type of zoning. And furthermore, I think that the state is being disingenuous in not addressing what they are planning to do with the state hospital, which I brought up to Mr. Robertson 2 years ago. And I'm still waiting to hear what their plans are there, because we may end up with kind of a double whammy of all of this. So my feeling is there's still a lot to be considered here, and I'm not ready to recommend this until we have all the information we need to have, because I feel that this, coupled with what else could be done here, and understanding that the state seems to be bent on developing everything possible without regard to the residents or the character of the town, I find that very concerning, because I specifically moved to Tewksbury to get away from that when I was living in Saugus. And if you drive through Saugus now, you will think I made the right decision.
All set?
All set.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, some things I can agree with my colleagues on, the simple fact that it's not the greatest law. It wasn't a great rollout by the state. But in the interim, though, it is a state law that we can either choose to abide by or not abide by. As we move along and the various deadlines approach, fortunately, the select board voted to meet the previous deadline. And, we have another one coming up in July, I believe. And the opportunity to mitigate some of the things that the town people obviously don't like about it would probably be, we would be in better shape to litigate if we were complying along the way. That's my opinion. I don't know that the planning board, that we as a planning board member, I know that we're only recommending whether or not the voters vote for it at town meeting here. That's all we're voting for. We don't have the authority, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, to decide whether, whether we're going to approve or approve this, the bill. Ultimately, whether it's this town meeting in May or a special town meeting, if we choose not to comply sometime before the July deadline, the voters are going to have to vote on it again. And if the voters or the select board decide to not comply, then the chips will fall where they may. And someday, I believe, the non-compliance is going to cost the town people. I don't know what that dollar amount is. It could be substantial, but it's another unknown right now. So I would vote I would like to see it go to town meeting again. I would like to see the voters, if they want, vote against it again, and then we'll see where the chips lay. Because somebody is going to bear responsibility should this not work out the way everybody hopes. And going on the offensive sounds great, Mr. Champa, but it may not, at the end of the day, be the best path forward for the town and for and for us. And I know it's a difficult division, if you will, going on right now. But that all being said, I think we should be very transparent with the voters, and I think we should give the voters an opportunity to vote on it again, up or down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Duffy. All right,
Chairman, may I speak now?
sure.
I'd just like to say that I don't think this should have to go back to town meeting again. We took the voters out. The voters spoke. We heard what they had to say. And I don't think it's right that you're going to drag these people out again to make them have to come back out and reiterate exactly what they said before. I am here to serve the residents of Tewksbury. I'm not here to serve the cookie cutter laws that, you know, our governor has proposed to us and tried to scare tactics. And I just think that we have to find a different solution to this. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's a cookie cutter law, and not every community is the same. And we should not have to abide by what she's dishing out to these residents, because it's going to cause a lot of problems. And yes, I agree, we don't want it to go to the courts and spend all kinds of money. But if we do say yes to this situation here, what's going to happen in the long run when we're not going to get any grant money for this? We're not going to get any monies that have to take care of this. What's going to happen to the infrastructures? What about our schools? This is not feasible for Tewksbury. It's just not feasible. I don't think we should go forth with it. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So just one cleanup item, just because this is where we get into a lot of the trouble. Mr. Champa, it's not to pick on you, but this has not been determined to be an unfunded mandate. The auditor gave a determination that they think it is an unfunded mandate. The only place it can be found to be an unfunded mandate is at the courts. So until the courts approve any kind of exemption by a town who asks for one, and each town has to ask individually as of now, unless they want to give some sort of blanket ruling, and they have consolidated the case. So you may get something like that, but it is not yet an unfunded mandate under the unfunded mandate law. All you've gotten is what is used as evidentiary information from the auditor. So just for clarification, because people get confused, because what that really means is, as of right now, there is no protection for Tewksbury. If we go out of compliance at that point, unless some court ruling comes out in the meantime, or any kind of a stay is issued by the court in connection with the case, when July rolls around, we will be out of compliance in the same way that some of the towns are now, and immediately found themselves losing not grant money like people were talking about before, but millions of dollars of funding. So I just want to be sure we're clear on what these things are, because we get into these terminologies that are not accurate when we say something like that, because it is not yet determined that it is an unfunded mandate that towns will be accepted from. That has to be given by the Superior Court, and that has not happened to any town yet, not us, not anyone. And we haven't even actually asked yet. We are still waiting for a letter from the auditor to give us a determination. So we need to be clear about the law, because this is where we're getting into trouble, because this is, as was pointed out, Mr. Duffy, it is a law. All right? So I'm going to do this one more time. I don't know, some folks have a difficulty with nuance, I think. I do not think this is a good law. I have not thought that this is a good law in terms of the way it was written. Someone said to me, and I'm going to use the line, but I'll credit it was coming from someone else. It's like it was written by the summer interns at the State House. Okay? I do not disagree with that fact. However, there are a lot of laws that I think are written poorly, and I would love to just simply not follow them. But that's just not how it works. You don't just get to pick and choose the laws you follow and the laws you don't follow. More importantly, I think for that is that we're elected officials. Now, if you want to sit at home on your computer and, type away on the online stuff, that's fine. But we all swore an oath. One of us did it tonight. And it didn't say to do what people would like us to do and what makes them happy. We swore an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the Commonwealth as elected officials. We chose to put our names on those ballots and get elected to these positions, and we took an oath. And that oath said that we would uphold the laws and the Constitution of the state of Massachusetts. This was determined to be constitutional under the state constitution. It is enforceable. Those things are all true. Now, we can still choose to not do it. That's fine. If that's what the town wants to do, fine. We can do that. But we have to understand that there are consequences for that. And as long as everybody understands what those are, if that's what town wants to do, fine. However, what I will say is there are consequences to this that we're not viewed the last time this was discussed. Last time, the only thing anyone was talking about was the named grants, most of which we don't get, and I don't disagree with that. But that's changed. The law has been upheld, the AG can enforce it, and the state can take way more from us than just those grants. Millions of dollars in discretionary funding. To me, I don't see how we can't send this at least back to town meeting, which is the legislative body of the town of Tewksbury. Not us, not the select board. The select board, who's talked about this quite a bit, doesn't even have to take a vote on this. We do. If the 5 people in here feel comfortable using your judgment in place of the town and the legislative body of this town and telling basically the town what they should or shouldn't do on an issue this big, if this was just simply a zoning article, fine. This is way bigger than that and can impact this town in a way that is much greater than just simply a zoning article. And to not send this back knowing that things have changed since the last time this was brought up, not the least of which, and maybe it's being technical, but the regulations that are currently in place are not the regulations that were in place when we dealt with this a year ago. They're different. They look the same, but those were ruled that they were done wrong, so they were thrown out and replaced. So town meeting didn't really actually deal with this in its current form a year ago at all. So to not at least give this back to the voters in the entire town and have that decision made only here, I think is, I mean, really no better than what we've had most people complaining about our state representatives doing and not listening to what the town wants. That's us stepping in the way and doing the exact same thing that everybody's been complaining about. How we would not send this to the town and let the legislative body of the town say, you know what, we understand it's a law, we understand that there are consequences, we still don't like it, and we're willing to take the consequences if they come. If we can't find a way around this, if we can't find a way out of this, we'll take those consequences. I'm fine with that. I will work with anybody after that to do the best we can to keep ourselves from getting hammered or whatever it is. But I think the town should get to say that, not just the 5 of us. I mean, this is a little, to me, this is a little different than just a regular zoning article. And to not, if things go badly, as Mr. Duffy pointed out, and we do get hammered by loss of, discretionary funding, or the AG comes in here and brings a special master in here and just simply drops this zone someplace where they feel like doing it. If we don't allow the town to vote on this again, to make sure they're 1,000% clear about what they want and what they're willing to tolerate as a consequence, that falls back on this board and the members of this board for having stepped in the way of the town having the ability to say what they really want. If they have to say it clearly twice, I really don't think that's an onerous ask. They're coming to town meeting anyways, or they should be. Separate issue, the fact that no one really comes to town meeting. But town meeting is one of the reasons we have a little bit of a problem here in that we only meet really once a year to deal with zoning articles. You can do it in October, but nobody really likes it and we don't like to do it. But we really only meet once to do this per year. If we had a different form of government that could meet more often, then if things changed over the course of the year and we needed to deal with it, you could. It requires us to call a special town meeting and drag everybody in from wherever. And if that were around July, does anybody here think that it's fair to be trying to tell people who are more than likely on vacation that they should have to come back here and deal with this because, we didn't let them deal with it already? I just don't see that. I understand that people think they know what the town's going to do and what the town wants. I'll say for an example, we put the zoning bylaw out in front of the residents. It was struck down. We brought it back the next year and it was passed. So, things can change. It didn't have to pass. They could have voted it down again and that's fine. But that was just the zoning bylaw. This thing has got millions of dollars potentially attached to it. To have the 5 of us make this decision and not give it to the town to do, I think is deeply concerning to me. I don't like the law the way it is. I understand that. I know a lot of people don't. But it is really, I think it is really concerning the idea that we could put this, put a stop to this here. We don't deal with finances here. Not really. That is not our job. This thing has a huge financial component involved in it. And to not give this to the legislative body of the town to make that decision, if it comes out 1,000 to 1, I'm fine. I I don't have a dog in this fight in terms of this law. I'll be honest, I don't do the online stuff, but, I have 2 ears, and I have people telling me that they read my name or what appears to be my name, and someone seems to think that somehow this thing is good for me personally. It makes absolutely no difference to me, this up or down. I do this, I put my name on the ballot because I want to do what is in the best interest of the town whenever I can, in the best way I can. And to me, the best way I can see that right now is to bring this back before town meeting and let them voice their concerns. On top of which, to alleviate some of the concern for this, you should pass one down. I am going to recommend an amendment to the article. You all have it in front of you. I'll read it. I discussed this with town council, so it could potentially address some of the concerns folks have for this, and that's only if it were to pass at town meeting, obviously. But the reading for this is, this bylaw shall not take effect until both the current consolidated civil actions before the Superior Court, including any and all appeals, is resolved and a final ruling has been issued determining if the MBTA Communities Act is an unfunded mandate under Massachusetts law. And in the event the court rules that the MBTA Communities Act is an unfunded mandate, this bylaw shall not take effect unless and until the Massachusetts legislature appropriates to the town of Tewksbury the funding necessary to implement the provisions of the MBTA Communities Act in accordance with the ruling of the court and/or any legal action initiated by the town of Tewksbury. So if anybody needs any clarification as to what that means, basically it is a halt to the MBTA Communities Act warrant article, should it pass, if this was attached as amendment, obviously. If it were to pass, it just simply sits there unless and until this is all dealt with, which to me is a protection to the town for giving us the time to remain compliant, which will keep us from losing funding, which is really my biggest concern here with this, is that can happen. We will have done what they asked us to do. All we did was put a hold on it until all these issues are resolved, at which point then it could take effect, or in the event that it doesn't, because they don't provide the funding, if that's required, it simply sits there and nothing happens. It is just held. Basically, it's sort of a reverse sunset on the article. So that's my suggestion. I suggest that it can only be added at town meeting. I'd have to do it at the time we bring up the article. But I would ask the board to consider it. And if the board was interested in adding it as an amendment, I would like to do that here so that I can say that if I were to bring it up at town meeting, if the members were in favor of this amendment to the article. So.
One
start.
question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
What fundings are we losing?
Well, okay, so, and I wish I had the whole thing here, but it's between approximately $7 to $10 million in discretionary funding that the town gets. That's over a whole host of different things, but it's all discretionary funding, which means any and all of that. And I originally would have said, I doubt that it would be education that you'd lose, except for I just watched them try to take it away from Middleborough, who finally settled their lawsuits. They're out of it anyways. But immediately they were losing education funding, which is deeply concerning. But you're talking about between $7 to $10 million over the last few fiscal years that we receive in discretionary funding. Every cent of that is at risk. Now, I can't tell you everything they'll do, but I will tell you this, at least to put in your calculus of when you think about all this. I'll give you a hypothetical. If you were, say, a hypothetical Democratic governor, okay, and you're running for re-election, and there is a law that you support strongly, and there are towns or cities, communities who are not going along with the plan, and you have to decide where you might go to get funding and take funding away from. Would it not be possible that in that hypothetical situation that governor might come looking to a town who has a history of not supporting that party in the statewide elections? That is a real serious thing to consider when you put your political hat on. Okay, that's a pretty easy lift, if that's what you want to do, to come after a town. Now, you asked, what might we lose? We have discretionary funding that goes to the call center that we have. We share that with another town. That town is Drake. Drake, it also has a history very similar to ours in statewide elections. So again, if you're looking to take funding away from towns to make an example of them, it's fairly easy to see that happening to a couple of towns you're not going to win anyways. So I'm just saying, I can't tell you that's going to happen, and anyone who tells you it's not going to happen is absolutely lying to you, because they can't tell you that either. All I can tell you is it's a risk that you need to weigh when you make your decision. It could happen because the court said it can happen, okay? So I don't know. And now we have some examples, as some of those towns that refused to send their letter in, they immediately came after them, and we're going to take away for those towns millions of dollars in funding. So it's not a likelihood. It is something. I don't know what number it is. I don't know, between 0 and 7 or 10 million. There is a number in there somewhere that you're going to find that you may lose funding for. And if we're fine with that, that's fine. I'm not telling anybody that we can't do that. I'm saying as long as you understand it and you still want to say, no, this is a principled stand. We think this law is a bad law. We will not comply with it, and we will take those consequences. That's fine. This town can do that. I'd like to see the town do it, though. I don't want to see this board do that, okay? Things have changed since the last time. We did not know that the law was constitutional. We do now. We did not know that the Attorney General had mechanisms to enforce the law. We do know that now. We thought we were only going to potentially put at risk the listed grants in the bill. That is no longer the case. All discretionary funding is at risk. Those three things alone are different than the last town meeting and should be given to the voters. If they want to make the same decision, that's fine, but it should be given to them as the legislative body of this town to make that decision loud and clear. So in a year from now or whenever, if any of these consequences do befall the town together takes that responsibility, and not the 5 people sitting here on this board. Because that's what's going to happen if we're the ones who are the only ones, apparently now, who are going to have to take a vote on this thing. Not the select board, who is also not the legislative body of this town, though some get confused about that. They're the executive body. They're the mayor. Okay? They're not the legislative body. And any vote you take here, you are not beholden to that vote when we get to town meeting. You are a town meeting member at that point. You can vote your conscience however that is. If you want to vote against the article at that time, every one of us is free to do so. Many of us have done so in the past for other things. You did what you did here as an elected official. You go to town meeting, you do what you do as a town meeting member, and that's fine. I have no issue with that for anybody. But I just feel like this is a huge issue, and this should go to the voters of the town. So
Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your opinion and your information. That's great. As a planning board member, I'm very confident in my decision and how I vote tonight. I think the residents spoke at town meeting, not closely. It was 80 to 20%. I don't think if we did bring it back to town meeting, that those numbers would change drastically, even regarding information that is available now. I think the town of Tewksbury spoke, and I stood up against it at town meeting. I've been standing up against it here at our board meetings in a minority faction, but I have no problem with my vote here to say no to bringing this to town meeting. I think town meeting already spoke, regardless of the information that came in before, came in after, and so forth and so on. So, I mean, Mr. Baker is the one who brought this forward originally, and he's moved out of state. So he left us holding the bag. So with that, I am still a very positive no to bring this article to town meeting. I'm one planning board member, but that's how I feel. So
fair enough, Mr. Fratalia. Anyone else?
I've certainly seen, and I don't do Facebook. I do get a lot of my news from a lot of different sources. I know when the current president was elected and his administration started making sweeping changes to federal policy, State of Massachusetts, Governor Healy specifically, A.G. Campbell specifically, Governor of Maine, Janet Mills specifically, and sued the federal government saying, you can't take away our money because we don't want to follow your laws. So right out of the gate, they're saying, you have to follow the law or we'll take away your money. You can't take away our money if we don't follow your law. So in my opinion, I think the fact of what the state is doing, what the governor is doing, what the attorney general is doing, I think it's incredibly hypocritical. I think it's going to destroy what's left of the state. I think we've seen a lot of bad policies and we went along with it during COVID. We did lockdowns, we shut down schools, all of that. And the damage from their decisions is massive. It's still, a lot of it is still being realized. I can't explain the relationship, but I know a second grade teacher who has said that each year since COVID, it has gotten worse. And this year is the first year she's actually thinking about quitting because of how bad these children are in terms of social skills development and all of that. So I certainly understand that it puts the town at risk. I feel, again, like Mr. Fratalia, that it was a pretty overwhelming majority at town meeting about this. I have not had a single person come up to me and say, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you vote in favor of MBTA communities? It is a terrible law. The town is going to pay for this somehow. And if it's just a matter of this much hurt versus that much hurt, you know, I would rather take the stand and say it's a bad law, force the state to admit it, work with us to come up with something that works for the town and helps the state with their housing initiatives. I do also want to say that your amendment is excellent. And if somehow that ends up going to town meeting, I do like seeing that there.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment on that, Mr. Champa, you know, you know, some of the extraneous stuff, not sure about, but as far as being in compliance, wouldn't we stand a better chance to be generally in compliance? Nothing's going to happen tomorrow here if we meet the July deadline. And whether it's the May town meeting or a special town meeting, the people are going to have to come out and vote and decide whether to accept it or not. It's not going to be, as Mr. Johnson says, and it shouldn't be up to us to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, if there is fallout, let's just say that there is millions of dollars worth of fallout, then there's going to be the finger pointing starting. And you know, not that anybody really is us from that standpoint. I don't care about fingers pointing, but I care about the financial hit that the taxpayers may take on this, just because we all want to, you know, because we don't like the law. It's you know, the dislike of the law has grown a lot of legs, and it's become very unpopular, and I certainly understand that. But, you know, the repercussions of not complying could also be very ugly. So what's the harm in complying and then continuing to work in court to try to make our case that it's an unfunded mandate and whatever else we think we may be able to do? And that's all. We are taking on, like Mr. Johnson said, a lot of responsibility. If we're going to make that decision for every taxpayer in town here, then when and if it gets ugly later, then whose fault is it? You know, the taxpayers are going to say, why didn't we get a chance to vote on this? Well, because the planning board voted not to advance it to town meeting. So there is a case to be made for us to stay in compliance, go through the courts, try to do it the right way, and try to get the result that we want. Everybody understands that the majority of voters don't want this law in town. That's not even an issue. I think everybody gets that. But I think that there's a right way and a wrong way to go about this, and I think the wrong way is going to be it's an unknown hurt for the taxpayers of Tewksbury.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's move the vote, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Excuse me, just noting that there is a person in the audience opening the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So if everybody on the board's all set, open up the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns?
He's not a resident of Tewksbury.
Well, we had somebody in the audience.
Okay.
All right, so bring it back to the board. I mean, this doesn't work the same way as town meeting, but, you know, I don't know if it even matters with the amendment or not, so, whether we want to take up whether we would approve the amendment or not.
I don't think it's relevant, Mr. Chairman, if we voted not to send it to town meeting.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, do we have any motions on the article?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we do not adopt the article as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other motions?
Third. Just for that one. Can't do a third.
No other motions? All right, so on the motion on the table, we have a motion to not adopt the article. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No.
Opposed?
That's 3-2. And it needed a positive endorsement, so that article will not go to town meeting. Shalata, was that it? Do we have another one?
Do we need to do the map or
The
not?
second one for the map as well, yes.
Okay, so
I'll
I'll
make
take
a motion, Mr. Chairman, to not adopt the map as written.
All right, so I have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Opposed.
No. All right, so 3-2 for the others as well.
Mr. Lauder, do we need a roll call vote or just the 3-2?
I caught you guys.
Huh?
I caught you.
What's that?
I heard all of them, so I know.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, that takes care of that. That brings us to correspondence, which we did not have. Any other business not known at the time of the posting of this agenda? Anybody have anything? No? All right. Takes care of that. That brings us to a motion for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
A motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll see you on the 28th. Good night.